All right, so a couple things. I know there's been testing this week. Okay. Okay. I know there's been testing this week, but you want to catch up on these last two assignments, Tuesday and Wednesday. Tuesday, it was in Aware. Wednesday was an assignment, and the notes in the assignment are in the blue bin. Make sure you do that. That's what's in red up here. Do y'all know there's 2 weeks till the end of the grading period? 2 weeks till spring break. Like today, plus 2 weeks is the Friday before spring break. So the next 2 weeks, you want to make sure you get your grades up. You got a grade sheet yesterday or today, or you can always just check Skyward. If you're not passing, I have to make contacts about that. So just make sure you're passing, and then I don't have to contact home. You know what I'm saying? Well, anyways, if you haven't done the assessment tracker, we'll get that done. Not today though, but you want to make sure you've done that for Unit 5 and 6 tests. You check Aware, put your grade in the assessment tracker at the top of Google Classroom classwork. Now, make sure you've done this warm-up because it's Friday and you're about to turn it in, right? So this is a reminder of first semester domain and range. So domain is X or Y. What do y'all think? Domain is X. And what is range? The other one, Y, right? Okay, so we're going to look at this little graph right here. Does everyone know that domain X is from left to right? And range is Y from bottom to top. So when I'm thinking left to right, the furthest to the left that this graph goes is right here, right? This is the furthest to the left. That's negative 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So go ahead and write domain as negative 7. And that's going to be less than X. Okay, X is my variable. Now, since that left point, do you see right here, this is shaded in. This is not open. Since it's shaded in, this less than sign has to be underlined. Does this ring a bell with stuff we've done before? Shaded in is underlined, right? Now, that's going to be less than, and now we're going to go to the very right. How far to the right does it go? Right here. What is this X value? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And since it is open, open means it's not equal, so you don't underline it. So you're going to leave this one not underlined. That's domain. Left to right, you look at the endpoints. If it's shaded, you underline the inequality. If it's not shaded, if it's open, you do not underline the inequality. All right, now, similarly, we're going to do range from bottom to top. Now, think about this. How low does this go? Right here, what is that Y value? You see how we're going bottom to top on the Y axis? It needs to be off, y'all. So the bottom right here is negative 1, 2, 3. Negative 3. Going right, negative 3. And again, this is on the Y axis, so that is less than Y. Now, that bottom point is shaded in, right? So that means that this inequality is going to be underlined. Again, shaded in, underlined inequality. And then how far up does it go? It goes up, 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 up to right here. What is this Y value? The top, the Y value is 1. So put less than 1. Okay. And since that top point is open, this is going to remain with no underline. So what am I doing? Left to right for domain, bottom to top for range. You got to look for if the endpoints are shaded or open, okay? Now, you don't need Chromebooks open. I need y'all locked in up here. So you can close those Chromebooks. You just don't need them open, okay? And I'm going to pass out your notes. We've got notes to do. There's a lot. We're not even going to finish today. For real, locked in. I'm going to pick up your warm-up sheets. I would really like for the headphones to be out. I keep having to ask you. Please take it out. Please. Thank you. Oh yeah, so Monday was no school. Any day you were absent, you can write absent. I'm gonna pick these up right now, make sure your name's on it. No. You're doing notes on the paper. Don't need the Chromebook open. Okay, thank you. No, thank you. Okay. Your name. Okay. All right. Like I said, we don't need the Chromebooks open because we're not using Chromebooks for notes. Okay. Everyone get the notes. Everyone has these notes? Good. Thank you. For you. Okay, if you didn't turn in your warm-up, it's over here. Put it over here. Everyone's locked in here. Please take out that headphone. Thank you. Everyone else has to do it. Now, here we are right here. I know this is a lot. We got to get through it. So let's get through it, okay? Quadratic, domain, and range. What we just showed on the warm-up was a linear domain and range situation. What about quadratic, the curvy thing that we've been talking about this week, okay? So, okay, go ahead and fill this in right here for me, please. It says, and you're filling it in, domain will always be, for a quadratic, it goes forever to the left, forever to the right, that it's always going to be all real numbers, okay? Okay, now for the range, you're going to have to find the vertex of the parabola and determine if it is a maximum or a minimum. The y value of that vertex is going to be used in your range, okay? If it's a maximum, your range will be of the inequality y less than or equal to the value. And the way you would verbally say it is all real numbers less than or equal to that value. And then your minimum, your range will be the inequality y greater than or equal to that value. And verbally, you would say all real numbers greater than or equal to the value. I know that might just be a bunch of words on the screen for now, but I'm going to show you an example. Okay, so make sure you get it down. I'll give you a minute. All right. Some of y'all are still getting this down. That's fine. All right. Everyone good on this? Okay, so we need to do that example. Okay, so if you need this, I'm gonna have to come back to it. Okay, there's a lot to do here. Very sorry. Okay, check it out. We are on this example right here. Does the graph have endpoints? Now, how do you know if a graph has endpoints? Well, the points at the end will be either, like the warm-up, solid or open. But if you see this, arrowheads, those are arrowheads. Y'all see that? Those are not endpoints. Okay? So if there are no endpoints, what did we just write above this? The domain is going to be all real numbers every time. Okay. So again, no endpoints for a quadratic. It goes forever to the left, forever to the right. That's all real numbers. Now, what are the coordinates of the vertex? Let's find the vertex. We talked about this on Wednesday. Where does it change direction? It's going down, 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 and then it changes directions right here. Starts going up, 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 up. That's my vertex, and the coordinates of this point are 3, 1. Let's go ahead and write 3, 1 for my vertex. And you tell me if it's at the bottom of a U shape, is that a minimum or a maximum? Minimum. Okay. Oops, draw that. Minimum. Do you know that? I just said it. Now, minimum is at the bottom. Now, how do you say that range as an inequality? Well, you think about it. If that's the bottom, it can only go up, which means it can only go greater. And since that's a shaded, you think of that like a shaded dot at the bottom, you're going to put y is greater than or equal to, and then what is the y, since it's range, what is the y value of this point? 1. Y is greater than or equal to 1. How do you say that verbally? You're going to say, basically, greater than or equal to 1, but the way you say it is all real numbers greater than or equal to 1. Write that down really quickly because I got to move on to the next one. So, again, the range is any y value greater than or equal to that y value of 1. So all real numbers greater than or equal to 1. Okay, that's if it's got no endpoints, only arrowheads. Cool. And then we're going to try to see what happens if you only have Desmos, right? Okay, that is no endpoints. What about if it gives you a quadratic equation with no graph? So let's get our graph here, this here. So if that's what we have, all right. So now I want you to notice something. This equation right here has p's in it, right? Can you graph with the letter p? You cannot. You can only graph with the letter x, the variable x. So look right here. It says you must change the variable to x. So if I wanted to rewrite it, it'd be negative x instead of p squared plus 2 x instead of p minus 2. Okay. So I'm going to go to my Desmos. You don't have to do it. Just watch me do it. Negative x squared plus 2x minus 2. Okay. There she be. A parabola. Now, does this graph have endpoints? Looking at this graph, I don't see endpoints, and I could like zoom out and try to find them, but you'll be zooming out forever. There is no endpoint on this graph. When you graph in Desmos, when it's x squared, it's going to keep going forever. So there are no endpoints. Go ahead and circle no endpoints, just like the one above. So just like the one above, my domain is going to be all real numbers. Did we say that? No endpoints is all real numbers, forever to the left, forever to the right, for our domain. But what's the coordinate of the vertex? Was anyone not here Wednesday? Because what we learned is when you want the vertex on a graph, you just go click it. Here's the change of direction. It's 1, -1. Okay, so again, you just click the key features, they'll pop up. So let's write that in here. The coordinates of the vertex are 1, -1. Is that a maximum or a minimum? Now this time, the vertex, the change of direction, is at the top of, I'll call it a top of a hill. Okay, so that is called a maximum. Okay, maximum. Cool. So like we wrote earlier, if you have a maximum, that means all of the graph is below it. Another way to say below is less than. So again, if you have the max, you're going to tell me that the range is less than that. So here's how we write it. I'm going to make this bigger. Y is less than or equal to the y value of the graph, which was -1. And you can see it right here. This y value is -1. The y value is -1. So again, when you have the max, the range is below it, less than or equal to -1. And the way that you would write that is, again, start off with the phrase all real numbers, but you qualify it with less than or equal to -1. Write that down real quick because we got to get to the back side. Lots to do here. Once you got that, flip it over. And our goal is to get to the end of this second page. The third page is probably not going to happen. So there is an end in sight, I promise. Okay, stick with me. On the next page, it's graphs with restricted domain and range. Now, do you know what restricted means? It means that there's an endpoint this time, to the left and to the right, or maybe only on one side. Restricted has endpoints. Cool? So let me show you how it looks. Okay, if you have restricted domain and range, first off, this right here is what we talked about on the warm-up today. Okay, if it's an open circle, that is going to be less than or greater than with no underline. But if you see a shaded in circle, that means less than or equal, or greater than or equal with the underline. Cool. And then if you have an endpoint on the left, you're going to say x is greater or greater than or equal to the values. If you have an endpoint on the right, that means everything goes to the left. That would be x is less than or equal to the value. Last thing, the range is affected if the endpoint is a max or a min point on the graph. Only affected, okay? So your range only changes about that. Cool? Make sure you got that down. I'll give you a minute, and then we're gonna do two types of examples. One endpoint, and then we'll do a two endpoint, call it a day. I know it's a lot. All right. Are we still getting this? All right, I got to move it on here. So let's try with a restricted domain, one endpoint, okay? So does this graph have endpoints? Everyone looking at this example. So I see an arrowhead, that's not an endpoint, right? Like right here, this is not an endpoint. But right here, that's an endpoint. Yes, it does. And it's on the right. So if it ends on the right, that means it only goes to the left forever. Left is less than. Okay, so think of it that way. Where's my endpoint? So it goes the other way from the endpoint. So if it stops at the right, it goes forever to the left. That's less than. So our domain is going to be restricted. X can only be less than the x value of the endpoint. What is the x value right here of this endpoint? -4. Cool. Should I underline the less than sign? The endpoint is an open circle, and we said open circle means do not underline it. So that's actually done. How would I verbally say that? Well, it's all real numbers, of course, that are less than -4. That is my domain. It starts at the endpoint, -4, goes to the left, less than, not equal. Okay, now the range. Just like a normal quadratic, the range has a limit. What is the limit? What is that endpoint? So this time the endpoint is right here. The furthest down it ever goes in this graph is right here. Now be careful. What is the y value right here? It's not -4, it's 0. Okay? We get confused, but you got to think range is y. Y is up and down. How far down? The far down is not -4, that's on the x-axis. The y-axis right here. The furthest down it goes is 0. So from 0, does it go up or down? The arrow is pointing upward. It goes up from 0. Up means greater than. So the way I would say it is y is greater than, because it's going up, 0. And since that endpoint is open circle, I do not underline the inequality. That's it. Okay? So the way I would say it verbally is, again, all real numbers. This time it's going to be greater than. All real numbers greater than 0. Okay, you can go ahead and get the 2 endpoints notes right here. When I have 2 endpoints, the x values of both endpoints is going to have x less than, x less than, basically. X is squeezed in between 2 endpoints. And the range, similarly, with the y value, less than y less than, squeezed between 2 endpoints. So make sure you have this written down as well, the 2 endpoints situation. All right. Here we go. Does everyone have this all written down? Getting there? Quickly. All right, let's get there on what if there's 2 endpoints. Ready? So here's the question. This is the last example. We'll call it a day. Y'all have been patient, good note takers today. Look, does this graph have 2 endpoints? I see a shaded dot on the left, open dot on the right. Those are 2 endpoints. There's no arrowheads. Circle the yes, 2 endpoints. Now, remember, if there are 2, you're going to have to put the letter x in the middle, less than, okay? You're saying x is squeezed between 2 values. And how do you figure it out? Domain is left to right. How far to the left does this graph go? Well, right here, that x value is -4. And then how far to the right does it go? Well, this x value is +1. Do you see how I'm telling it? I'm looking at the x-axis, far left, far right. Now, this is not done because I really need to always think about the inequality. Should I underline the less than sign on either side? So on the left, this is shaded in, isn't it? So if it's shaded in, then that left inequality should be underlined. Cool, right here. Y'all see that right here? This is underlined. But on the right, this one is an open circle, so that's going to remain not underlined. That, my friends, is the domain. Now, this time, since we have 2 endpoints, it's going to be a little bit of a longer verbal explanation. You're still going to start off with all real numbers. Starting off with the left, you're going to say greater than -4, greater than or equal to -4, I should say, because it goes to the right from -4. But it's also and less than, not equal to, +1. That's the whole statement. It is all real numbers greater than or equal to -4 and less than +1. It's between those two, and that's how you verbally write it. Okay. All right. Now, before we do the range, they want us to find the coordinates of the minimum and the maximum. This is where it gets a little tricky. So I know this might be like, oh my gosh, too much. Lock in here, because this is where people mess up. How far down does this go? What is the lowest point? The lowest point is actually not the end point. Like this right here is not the lowest point. It's way down here. Now, do you see how this lowest point where I'm putting my cursor is not an open circle? Go ahead and put a shaded in dot right there. That will be your lowest point. Cool? And the coordinates of that lowest point are -2, -7. Okay, that is going to be my lowest point. Doesn't matter if it's an end point or not. It's got to be the lowest point on the graph. Okay. Now, what's the highest point? If you go up, 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 the highest it goes is right here at +2. Okay. So +2 is my maximum. So this point right here, the coordinates of that highest point is 1, 2. 1, 2. Cool. All right, now the range, inequality, we have to go from the lowest y to the highest y. So here's why we just wrote this down. Isn't the lowest y on the minimum right here, -7? And isn't the highest y on the maximum right here, +2? I mean, if you look at the graph, didn't we just say like, hey, look at this line, -7, +2. So I'm going to write, kind of like before, the letter y with a less than, less than. Y is squeezed between the least y and the greatest y. The bottom we said was -7. The top is +2. It's squeezed between -7 and +2. Are either of those points going to be underlined with their inequality? So the top is open, so I'm going to leave this one not underlined. But the bottom, remember, if it isn't open, you treat it like a shaded in dot. That one is going to be underlined. Y'all see this right here? Underline the left inequality because the bottom is not open. It is as if it were shaded. Okay? And now you just have to say it kind of like our domain. You always start off with all real numbers greater than or equal to the least number, which is -7. So it's always greater than the least and less than the greatest. Okay. And remember, the reason why we put equal to is because this one's underlined. No equal to, not underlined. That was a lot all at once. And because of that, we're not going to overdo it and do another page, but we do need to kind of touch on that on Monday and get you an assignment. Sound good? So make sure you have this written down. That's it for today.